This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Valeria Teles interviews Colin McCullough, the author of the Healthy Vegan Cookbook and Smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies. Your favorite cookie flavors using healthy, whole food ingredients. Since Colin became vegan in 1995, he has been finding new ways to make healthy eating convenient and delicious, especially while raising two boys with healthy appetites. Colin's book, The Healthy Vegan Cookbook, was released in 2019. It is a system of making healthy and nutritious meals that taste too good to feel like a sacrifice. From nutritious breakfast smoothies that taste like dessert, fresh soups and salads for lunch, to delicious sauces that transform meals, these recipes will have everyone asking for seconds. Colin teaches private and public cooking classes throughout New England, sharing his experience and recipes with people who want to incorporate more whole food, plant-based meals for health, compassion, and the environment. Meet Colin on colincooksvegan.com. Here is the interview with Colin McCullough.
In your own words, who is Colin McCullough?
Oh, well, let's see. I've been vegan for about 25 years, so that's really a big part of who I am and what I do. I teach a lot of healthy cooking classes around New England, and lately, mostly online.
My follow-up question is being a vegan. So the question is, why and how did you choose to become a vegan and also a vegan author?
Right. About 25 years ago, I went to college a long time ago, and there was a large international community there, and so the cafeteria was mostly vegetarian. So I had an opportunity to eat really well, eat vegetarian for a year. And really, after that, the more that I read about it, the more informed I became about it, then I really felt like in order for me to be consistent, with caring about animal welfare and also health, then it really made sense for me to try being vegan. I had read several books that basically just said, try it for 30 days. If you don't, feel 1,000% better, then, do what you want. But I really did feel such an improvement in health and just felt so much better overall.
So another question for you is the difference between being a vegetarian, a plant-based, and vegan. I think you have another word you call whole food. So what's the difference between being in a vegetarian diet, whole food, plant-based, and vegan? Are they all different?
Somewhat, yeah. There's nuances. So vegetarian is just not having any meat products, and vegan would be not having any animal products at all. So no meat and no dairy. But as you said, it's also a lifestyle choice, so that you're not using any animal products in terms of what you wear and, things like that, which you use in your life, or trying to minimize it as much as possible. The terms whole food and plant-based are kind of newer to the scene, I suppose, more from a health standpoint. whereas vegan is more of a lifestyle choice. Whole food, plant-based is really, the way that I see it, is really more, based on a health perspective. So sometimes people will say, vegan defines what you don't eat and what you don't wear and purchase, whereas whole food plant-based is really more about what you do eat and consume.
Yes. So one is more health oriented, and being a vegan, it's more, I love the word you use, a lifestyle choice. So it is a choice we make, from what I understand, which I'll be asking you questions about, to live a life that's more compassionate.
That's true. Yeah.
Talk to me about this component of compassion, Colin, behind veganism.
Well, not eating any animals, especially when I was vegetarian, and I had initially become vegetarian more for animal reasons of, feeling like I can eat really well as a vegetarian and not have animals have to die just so that I can eat. I can be perfectly healthy without eating any meat. But, I found as a vegetarian that, the more that I learned about the dairy industry, that, it's so connected to the meat industry that, even if I'm not eating meat anymore, then, still the cows are always continuously having to be pregnant in order to produce the milk. And, so that even if I am trying to reduce, how much harm is done, still as a vegan, I really have felt like, it's much more complete that way.
I know you made a decision a long time ago, but this was something that was already in you, disposition to be compassionate toward animals and all beings for that sake?
Well, I didn't grow up vegetarian. My parents didn't make vegetarian meals or anything when I was growing up. But, I guess it just felt like, once I realized that I had that choice, so that, again, so animals don't have to die in order for me to eat. And, it just felt like the compassionate choice of, for me, why would I? If I have that choice and I can eat perfectly healthy and, and have really good food without having to have any animals be killed for it, why would I not do that?
Are you religious or spiritual in any way?
Not really. I wouldn't say so. Not in the usual way that I suppose that it's ascribed, but I do have two boys that are now 18 and 21, and they have always been vegan. So, I've felt like with them growing up, they have really become, I guess they've always been, very compassionate people, even when they were younger. And, veganism, I think, was really a huge part of that. And, understanding right kind of from the beginning, that you don't need to cause suffering in the world to be able to be healthy and eat really well.
Such an important message for all of us. Did they ask, were your kids ever curious about eating meat?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They were?
Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with that? What did you tell them?
Most of their friends are not vegan or vegetarian. And so they've sort of grown up, just kind of being in the mix of everybody else, whether it's their friends or, scouts or church or something like that. So it's always been my rule that, at home, I'm doing the cooking, I buy the food. So, they sort of have to eat what I make.
Right.
And, if they decided to buy anything with their own money, they just don't bring it in the house. So I've never had a rule as a parent for them that they had to be vegan. It's just sort of by default. But, I've said, if you have some money and you go out and you want to try something, then, really it's up to you. It's your choice.
Did they ever try to eat meat?
There have been times that they've tried things, and it's mostly been dairy. If they're at their friend's house and they'll tell me, especially when they were younger, they did this, that occasionally they'd come home and they'd, be really sheepish and embarrassed. And they say, Dad, I've tried cheese.
That's cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honest.
And, I was always really curious because I grew up eating meat and dairy. So, I'm curious as a parent, like, what is it like for you to have tried cheese for the first time? And, usually they would say, It's really not that much different from, the vegan versions of whatever they've had before. And, for most things, they would just say, I don't understand what's the big deal. It's really pretty much the same thing as what I'm used to having. So,
And that's what so many of us don't understand, that we can make food, vegetarian or vegan dishes to taste really good. I mean, to me, it's naturally just amazing to taste. We don't need to do much to it even. I know you are the artist of making amazing vegan foods, but wow, and I find it to be very artistic too, and creative.
yes.
Cooking with vegetables, right, Colin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So let me ask you one of my warm-up questions, the big questions. What do you think or feel is the purpose of the human experience?
To help other people.
It's very clear to you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. You're really fast to answer that question. And the meaning of freedom, what is to be free?
It's hard for me to answer that question because, there's so many things in my life that have been a direction from the circumstances of where I was born or how I grew up. And, you think that you have freedom in that way, but, so much is dictated by your experiences that you've had.
So true. Yeah, they call programming and conditionings, right?
For example, I guess with that, for where I used to live in Massachusetts, there was a story with my kids' grandparents, great-grandparents. They had come from, many generations ago, they were French Canadian, and they just decided to, seek a better life. They came from Canada down into America. They were on a train, and at each stop on the train, then, employers from the mills would come on the train and say, we need workers here. If you're interested, please come off here. And so that's why, when we say where they grew up in central Massachusetts, that's why they're in central Massachusetts, because generations ago, somebody was on a train and decided to get off in central Massachusetts, Right. It's amazing. It's amazing the stories of how we came to be where we are sometimes.
What do you think is the world's greatest need at this time?
One thing that I really try to focus on is health. That's always been a big part of where I've come from. And, to see how much disease there is and, how much richer people's lives could be if they had more health and not just more time in their lives, but, to be able to be healthier for longer in their lives. That's always something that I've really felt very important about.
Do you see a better future for us after these challenges we are having?
I think so. I certainly think it's going to be a much more conscious and aware lifestyle moving forward. Or at least I hope so.
How did you become a writer?
Well, I went on a cruise, a vegan cruise, and that actually does exist.
That's great.
About 6 years ago. And that's actually out of Florida. And on the cruise, it was really a series of workshops, and they had a lot of cooking classes. And I really felt inspired after doing that to come back to, where I live in New England and be able to help other people and teach cooking classes, as having been a vegan for a long time and, having two boys who were raised vegan. There's been a lot that I've learned over the years, definitely lots of tricks and tips that I wanted to be able to help other people with that. And so I started teaching the cooking classes, and pretty soon afterwards, people were asking me, do you have a cookbook? I would teach in the class, I would teach 3 or 4 different recipes, and people would say, that's a great start, but, do you have a book? Do you have, resources? And, one thing that I found in the way that I cook as a vegan, I really couldn't find cookbooks that really matched exactly how it is that I cook. And, the lifestyle that I have around food and my kids have around food, with convenience and eating well, I really just didn't see anything on the market that was how I do it. So, you know, I sort of was left in a position to, well, I think I have to write it myself.
So you have two books. The first one is the Healthy Vegan Cookbook. And the second is the most recent one you just released is Smoothies that can taste like Girl Scout cookies.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So your cookbook is a system for preparing whole food, unprocessed meals faster and more convenient. So talk to me for a moment about the system. That's interesting that you use that word.
Sure. Well, there's a few things that I focus on in the cookbook specifically. I do cover all the different meals and desserts and everything, but one of the things that I have been doing sort of differently than standard, I suppose, is I usually have smoothies for breakfast. So I really like to be able to have, 3, 4, servings of fruit and vegetables to start the day. But, instead of just kind of throwing some almond milk and different fruit into a blender, then, over the years, I developed a number of recipes of smoothies that taste like dessert. Especially for someone like me, I kind of have a sweet tooth. So, I can have something like my favorite go-to smoothie is the Black Forest smoothie, which is chocolate cherry. And, for me to have something that tastes like chocolate and cherry for breakfast, and it gives me lots of energy, I feel great, throughout the morning, then that's fantastic. Yeah, I don't want to eat cereal for breakfast. It's so boring to me.
I agree.
So, smoothies for breakfast. Also, as far as dinner goes, I usually have some kind of a bowl meal for dinner. So, I'll have, some kind of grain like brown rice or quinoa, have some fresh vegetables, have some kind of a protein like tofu or beans or something. And, especially like my kids would say, well, that's all healthy, but it's like kind of boring and it doesn't have much of a taste. But, over the years, I've written a number of recipes for different sauces. So really, people ask me, how do I get my kids to eat kale and ask for seconds? And it's the sauce. It always has been the sauce for me. So a system of, I have 30 different smoothie recipes. I have 30 different sauce recipes. We really talk about, making sauces in batches and, freezing those. So, when my kids were younger, especially if I'd come home, from work and I'd have, 10 or 15 minutes to be able to get my kids something healthy to eat that they're going to want to eat, that they really enjoy, and then, get them off to karate class. I have, 15 minutes to do that. Having a system in place where it's planned, I have everything frozen that I need. I can have all that ready to go in 15 minutes and be out the door and have the convenience of that. So,
does it remain fresh, Colin, when we freeze foods? I mean, somewhat fresh.
Yes. Yeah. I do a lot of, I freeze a lot of different sauces. I'll put those in mason jars. There's a number of things that sometimes I'll put sauces in ice cube trays, the silicone ice cube trays. And then once that's frozen, I'll put them in a Ziploc bag so I can just pull the cubes out, heat it up, and I'm out the door.
You wrote in your book, there are some passages or some quotes that I really caught my attention. You said something like, breaking an addiction or bad habit is as much about changing the way you think as it is physical. So you said a little bit more. But this about changing the mind, the way we think, it's very important that we understand that. But I would like to know, what do you mean exactly when you say changing the way we think?
Right. Well, I mean, when it comes to, either weight loss or, if people are trying to beat drug addiction or food addiction, so much of that is mental you have to be able to change the way you think. So it's not just that your body doesn't crave it anymore, but if you change the way you are thinking about it, then your mind doesn't want it either. So, in my case, when I became vegan, initially I would have some temptation to, have a hot dog or something when I would, it would be available and right there. And, because I sort of changed the way that I thought about it, then I could look at that and say, I really don't want that because I know what that is. I don't want that in my body because I know how it feels to have eaten that. And it just doesn't feel good.
Is that because we need those nutrients? The body craves certain foods? Or it's just like you said, it's something that is conditioned, programmed in our minds?
Well, sometimes I will talk to people who are newly vegan and, they'll have cravings for certain things. And I usually will recommend that people will talk to a nutritionist who is either vegan or, open to veganism, understands more about it than, what they would normally find with a nutritionist. And, so much of the time it really is just their body saying, hey, I need more, iron or, I need more protein, something like that. And there's so many plant-based ways to be able to get that. It's just, a lot of times when people go vegan, then, they're definitely changing pretty drastically sometimes what it is that their body is used to having. So, maybe it's just a case of, they're missing some nutrients that their body needs. And you can, with some help, with a nutritionist, you can figure out what that is and move on from that.
Another thing that I heard before, it's about that vegans, not all of them are healthy. It doesn't mean that because we are vegan, we are healthy. Talk to me for a moment about that. Why is this the case?
Well, sure. I mean, Oreos are vegan. So,
right.
I tried to raise my kids to be, healthy as I can. But, there's a lot of junk food that's vegan. And it would be funny sometimes, like they'd go to their friend's house for the weekend and, they'd have the Oreos and they'd have all the junk food and, potato chips and, they go and have, the Burger King Impossible Burger that you can get that vegan. And they would come home from being away for the weekend and eating all that stuff. And they would say to me, I love this. They would say to me, Dad, please make me something healthy because my body is going nuts right now. And it's just music to my ears. Would love to, absolutely. Yes, I will. Happy to do that.
It's interesting that your kids, they can tell, like we can, if you're listening to the body, when something's just not right.
Right. And, if you're not used to eating something like, if you're not used to eating processed sugar, and then, they go for the weekend and have a lot of Oreos, then, that's a lot all of a sudden.
Right. For the system to process, right? Another question I have for you is about science. I know about veganism, vegetarianism, or any kind of plant-based diets. It's all about health that's really healthy for us. So I'm wondering if science backs this statement.
Yeah. So, in the cooking classes that I teach, it's mostly to people who are not vegetarian or vegan. It's just, it's usually at libraries and things like that. So I get lots of questions, definitely some about health. People will say, well, I saw a study that says, if you eat too much soy, then it's bad for you. And, I can joke and say, well, I'm pretty sure if you eat too much of anything, it's going to be bad for you. But especially if you go online, there's so much information that, contradicts one thing over the other. But, one website that I really get a lot of information from and that I really refer to a lot is nutritionfacts.org. And that's Dr. Michael Greger. He's a vegan doctor. And, unlike so much of the other websites where you can, find doctors' opinions and, people write in and say, what do you think about this or that? One thing that I love about Nutrition Facts and Michael Greger is he says, let's see what the science says. Why would you, who cares what I think? Let's see what the science says. Right. So, he spends a lot of time, he has people working with him. They look at, all of the latest nutrition science and data and, see, what does the science say? So when, people will write in and say, how do you deal with, this issue or that issue? Then he'll say, let's look at, see, what do the studies say? And this is, this is the information that we have on how eating plant-based diet is going to make a big difference with that.
Yeah, so going by the facts, right? I love that. Nutritionfacts.com. It's
nutritionfacts.org. Yep.
Oh, .org, not .com. Okay.
Yeah, and that's all free. There's tons and tons of videos. You can, do a search for, whatever issue you're looking at as far as food and nutrition. And there's probably many handfuls of little 5-minute videos that you can watch to learn more about that.
Thank you, Colin. So I have some myths here that we hear a lot. So I'd love to go through some of them, perhaps not all of them, because I have too many. The first one is about protein, that we will lack in protein, B12, iron, and calcium. And the list goes on, really, with nutrients. But basically, protein and B12, those are the biggest ones. Is that true?
I have definitely never had any issues with not getting enough protein. There's really so many different sources of protein that you can get that are plant-based. In the smoothies that I have for breakfast, I usually have some nuts in there, some almonds or cashews or something like that. I have, some beans and lentils, and I do eat some tofu sometimes. And, if you eat a pretty varied diet, with all these different sources, then it's really no issue at all.
Do you take any supplements or recommend that vegans do?
I have a B12 supplement that I take when I remember to take it.
Right.
There's a debate certainly in the vegan community, even among the nutritionists, about what's the best way to go, and I don't really weigh in on that, but I do have the supplement, and I do take it for B12. But the nutritionists that I've listened to and have been to have said that everybody, regardless of whether they're vegan or not, have a harder time with B12 as they get older, and try as I might to not get older, I still do. So they recommend taking some B12 for everyone, regardless of whether you're vegan or not, as you get older, just to make sure that you have some, that you're up on your levels. And anytime that I've had a physical and have had blood work taken, occasionally, every 5 years or so, then I would ask, for them to check the B12, and really all my levels have been just fine. It's perfect.
Another myth, another thing that we hear about a lot is that being a vegan diet or plant-based is too expensive. What is the truth about that, Colin?
Well, I'm not really sure how that is true, unless I suppose if you buy most of your food at the health food store, if you're not buying organic, if you're buying organic all the time for everything, then, that can be more expensive. But, a big part of it too is the processed foods. So if you eat a lot of processed foods, if you buy a lot of the, meat substitutes and cheese substitutes, that all those things can definitely be expensive, and that can really add up. And, I do have some of those things sometimes. So, I'm not an absolutist and, don't ever have an Impossible Burger or something. But, I do most of my cooking. I do most of the food that I eat is food that I've made at home, and my preference and, what really works the best for my body, makes me feel the best, is to try and eat as unprocessed as possible.
So is that something that you recommend, that we eat organic vegetables and grains and fruits?
I do. Yeah. I mean, everybody has to draw their own line, I suppose. A lot of the times, because before COVID, I really work on the road quite a bit. And so, people would ask, what's the supermarket that you go to the most? It's really whichever one is on the way home from where I've been working. And, I try to buy organic. I get the Misfits box every week that has organic produce in it. But, if I'm in a pinch and I'm on the way home and I go to a grocery store that doesn't have everything that's organic, then, I'm not 100% absolutist about it, but I do try to when I can.
And another myth that I have here, it says meat-eating children grow taller and stronger than vegan children. You're the best person to ask this question.
Right. Actually, my kids would have kind of a funny story about that. They were in Scouts for a number of years, and when they would go away on camping weekends, then they would have to really bring their own food and kind of prepare ahead of time. And so while the kids were eating, all the regular stuff, then they kind of had their own special stuff. And the kids would sometimes tease them and say, "Hey, vegan," and they would kind of laugh and say, "Are you making fun of me?" They would joke and they'd say, the two brothers here, they would joke and say, "We can run faster and farther than everybody else here, so we should be making fun of you. Why are you making fun of me? Look at what you're eating." They've always been, really strong and healthy boys, so no one's ever picked on them for not being healthy or anything.
And another myth is about the vegan diets are for weight loss. So implying that we lose a lot of weight when we are eating in such a way.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people do. It really depends a lot on why people become vegan in the first place. Like I said, you can have Oreos and that's vegan. So I mean, I certainly have met vegans that are just totally across the spectrum. Some people are in it more for the animal issues, which is fantastic. Some people are in it for the environmental impact, which is also great. And some people are in it for the health reasons, and find that eating vegan is the healthiest way to eat.
Definitely is, from my perspective too. I'm not a vegan. I don't have the lifestyle of a vegan, but I choose to eat plant-based diet. And as much as I can, I'm very aware of what I buy and from who I buy and companies and what I wear too. So I guess I'm getting close to that, catching up.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny, backwards thing that, people look at or people hear about vegans and say, how can you be healthy enough if you're vegan? And it's really backwards because it's like, based on what people normally eat, with meat and dairy, like how could you be healthy if you eat that? I don't,
yeah.
It seems like such a backwards question to me.
So true, Colin. And I truly feel like it's a miracle to be healthy eating that way. Another myth, this will be a good one to ask you too, is vegan diets are inappropriate for pregnant women.
That's not what the science shows that I've seen anyway. When my kid's mom, when she was pregnant, then, just like everybody else in the pregnancy classes, you have to write down, keep a journal of, what it is that you eat, and you take a look at that, make sure you're getting all the nutrients. And, it was never a question, never a problem, not at all.
And another one, if you don't mind, it says it is natural to eat food from animals. Most people feel it's a natural thing to do.
I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, there may have been a time in history where we didn't have the choices that we do now. And, that might have been or also depending on where you live, it might have been the only source or one of the few sources where you'd be able to get enough nutrition to be able to carry on. But, we're so lucky, especially, here in the United States. For me, I feel like, we're so lucky where, we have these supermarkets where you can buy, you have the choice of so many different foods. Like I have a friend who lived in Senegal in Africa for a while, and she said, you get what's at the market, and the market has, a pretty limited number of things. And after living there, and she came back to the U.S. and went into a supermarket, she said, "Oh my goodness, unless you don't know how good you have it here." So many choices.
It's incredible how that happens, right? We don't see the choices we have most of the time.
And even, 25 years ago when I became vegan, then there were a lot fewer options. I mean, now you go in the supermarket and you look for, if you're looking for almond milk or soy milk, there's so many different choices. There's oat milk and, hemp milk and all kinds of different ones. And so it's really so much easier now starting out than it was when I did 25 years ago. There are really so many more choices out there now.
We're almost at the end, but before I ask you my final questions, talk to me for a moment about your recent book. It looks so delicious, like the pictures, these smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies.
Correct, yeah. So I actually that came out of the first book, the Healthy Vegan Cookbook. And with this one, I had when I was writing the Healthy Vegan Cookbook, I wrote, 30 different smoothie recipes. And one of those was a peanut butter cookie smoothie. So, trying to make it taste like a peanut butter cookie. And so, when I was working on that, I felt like that's really close to how the Girl Scout, the Do-si-dos peanut butter cookies taste. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to try and use, whole food, healthy ingredients, vegan, to try and duplicate the taste of all 10 of the Girl Scout cookie flavors. And so I worked on that for about 2 years, and my kids were happy enough to be taste testers for me for the whole thing.
That's cute.
But basically, the idea behind it was to try and use fruits and vegetables that have kind of a neutral taste, like banana and mango and things like that. I use some sweet potato, some different vegetables in the different recipes. So use those as sort of a base for the smoothie, where they don't really have a strong taste, and to use extracts and different flavorings to try and have those things really come to the front and center, so that the smoothies can taste like all these different Girl Scout cookies, but actually be really healthy, and use whole food healthy ingredients for that.
Thank you for your work. It's very meaningful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, and I love that. I'll try some of those for sure. No doubt about that. It looks amazing. Oh.
Yeah.
So before I ask you my final questions, would you like to add anything?
I guess as far as the books go, that the Girl Scout cookie smoothie book that just came out the other day, actually, both of those are available on Amazon. Both of those books are listed there. I have a website, colincooksvegan.com, and also I'm on Facebook, Colin Cooks Vegan. And on both of those, I have all the different classes that I'm teaching, especially now with the libraries. It's all online. It's all free. So, I usually teach about an hour, maybe 3 or 4 different recipes, and people can either go on my website or follow me on Facebook, and I post on the calendar, when I'm going to be doing the classes. You can register. And like I said, it's all free. And so you can get more information that way.
Wonderful. And what is your website, Colin?
It's colincooksvegan.com.
Okay, wonderful. I'll have that too in the written form. I have 3 questions for you, the final ones. Success. What is to be successful to you these days?
I love to, well, these days, especially with COVID, I've been teaching the classes online. And, at first I was kind of frustrated by not being able to interact with people, physically, and have people be able to try the recipes. But, because it's been online, then people all over the world have been able to tune in. So, I've got people from Australia and Central America who are coming into these classes. And, for me, in my little kitchen in Portland, Maine, to be able to reach people in Australia is amazing, with technology to be able to do that. So, whether or not I make any money from it, it doesn't matter. If you've ever published a book, then you know that, there's you hardly make any money from that. But, really just to be able to, share, what I've learned in 25 years, it's been a great journey to be able to do that. And, also to, when I teach the classes at libraries and people get to, try the different things, Especially things like the smoothies, they see all the fruits and vegetables go into it and they say, well, yeah, it looks healthy, but what's it going to taste like? And then, to see, people's eyes like light up when they try it and say, wow, like, if I could eat like this every day, then this would be fantastic.
Right.
So I really appreciate that. I love that.
What was the hardest lesson to learn about yourself in life as of today?
When I was in high school, I really hated public speaking. It would be really hard to drag me in front of the class because I was so afraid of speaking in front of other people. And over the years, there have been a number of projects that I've been involved with that has kind of forced me to have to be in front of people and talk in front of people. In 2009, my family, we did a cross-country, 2 months cross-country trip in a car that was powered by vegetable oil. And
wow.
we made a whole eco video series about, the travels that we went to. And we had to give a lot of talks, a lot of presentations, and my kids and me. And that really kind of forced us to be out in front of people. So that was hard for me to put myself in front of people and have to talk. But, everybody has something valuable to say and to share.
So it's possible to actually have a car running without gasoline or those harmful chemicals.
Right. Yeah. I used to have, it was a diesel Beetle, and I had it converted so that, a diesel will run on used cooking oil just fine. Works great. And so we were able to travel all over the country and really not use any diesel at all. We just used vegetable oil from restaurants to be able to travel around. So it was great.
And this is something that most people know about it, or it's not really?
It was really big in the 2000s, up until it's gotten harder to be able to get the oil, once more and more people found out about it. And diesels were getting pretty hard to find, to buy, because, so many people were converting them. But, it's from a practicality standpoint, it definitely had its drawbacks. Several years ago, I bought a car that was all electric battery car, and you just plug it in at night. It's so easy. And it's so much fun to drive, from a practicality standpoint. It's certainly beats having to go out and strain, used vegetable oil that I would get from restaurants and, make a mess and everything. So it's so much easier to just plug the car in and go.
2 more questions. If you knew you would die soon, meaning losing the body, would you make any change in your life or do anything differently?
I have thought about that. Hopefully I have many years ahead of me.
Yeah. Being a vegan, yes, I would say so.
Yeah. And I don't think so. I really feel great. From a health standpoint, especially once I became vegan, I felt such a difference in health, and I really would never want to go back to the way that I was eating before. So, I can't imagine I would ever have any regrets over being vegan. It's just been such a positive thing for me.
Do you have any cravings lately, or do you have cravings at all?
Honestly, the only craving that I have is donuts. Love the smell of donuts. And I'm really lucky, being in Portland, Maine. There are a few places in the area that have vegan donuts.
Oh.
So, from the healthy vegan standpoint, donuts aren't so great. But, as an occasional treat, I really enjoy that. But, I would really love to be able to go into Dunkin' Donuts and be able to get something there, but most of it's not vegan. So,
right, that's true.
I'm sad about that.
Right. And my last question is, what are 3 things about life you know for sure as of now?
I don't want to speak for other people, but like I was quick to answer, helping other people is really important, and we have so many different ways individually that we can help people. So, that's one thing. Two, that you can live a more compassionate way I say you have the ability to minimize how much suffering there is in the world because of you, because of how you eat. There's no way to be perfect in how you eat, but, you can certainly control and minimize that. And let's see, the third thing that I know to be true about the world, that the world is a better place because I don't say it sounds like egotistical to say it, but my kids are so fantastic. I love them so much, and I really feel like they are going to be able to make the world a better place, even more than anything that I've tried to do. They've started out life the way that they have, and it sort of like leapfrogs them in a way that it took me half my life to realize that there was a better way for me. So hopefully they'll jump in the world and go way past me.
So it has been a meaningful and beautiful conversation for me. Thank you for your honesty. I love how genuine you are. I love your wisdom, your work, your mission, your message. And again, what is your website, Colin?
It's colincooksvegan.com. And thank you for the questions. They're very thoughtful.
Thank you. Thank you for your presence. So we'll be in touch soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Colin McCullough and his work, please visit colincooksvegan.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.